I am and always have been a very introverted, anxiety-ridden kid. I always imagine the worst of the situation, but this time it was worth it. My cousin had persuaded me to meet her older boyfriend and his friend at a pizza center. After reaching there, I found out that her older boyfriend was in college and was 20. My cousin and I were 16 at the time. I got really anxious and wanted to leave, but I couldn't, because my cousin started blackmailing me and would not let me leave. After 30 minutes, our pizza arrived. It was at that I realized that the janitor of the pizza store was staring at me. I stared at the opposite direction and I thought to myself, what a creep. My cousin's boyfriend took out 4 bottles of Coke from his bag and gave one to each of us. I noticed the seal on my bottle was broken, and I, not thinking much of it, glanced at the janitor and he was shaking his head vigorously, and I finally understood what he was trying to say. I asked the boyfriend about where he got the bottle from. They all laughed and said, "Duh, from the counter." By that time, I was so annoyed that I ran to the counter and shouted at them, asking, why would they sell a broken seal bottle to a customer? And before they could say anything, I heard someone shouting, "Hold them and do not let them go." I turned around and saw the boys and my cousin trying to storm out of the place, and 2 police officers were holding them down. I got so confused and so lightheaded that I collapsed on the spot. 2 female employees of the store had picked me up and put me on a chair, and I made the best decision of my life and I called my dad. The whole story that we found out after that was my cousin, her boyfriend, and her best friend tried to drug me so they could take me to the boyfriend's house and kidnap me, and ask my father for money, which to be honest is the dumbest plan ever. Like, how would they even take me out of the mall, which the pizza center was in, after I was unconscious? Anyway, the janitor heard their master plan when the boys were in the restroom and were discussing the plan. Another dumb decision, which prompted the janitor to inform this to the store manager and them calling the police. This is why our order took so long to come in. He saved me from being drugged. Don't know much about the kidnapping though, and I thought that he was a creep. My aunt, who was a single mother, tried to disown her daughter but later kept her and took her to therapy. The guys went to jail for a year and a half. They were also charged with 6 thefts, and I do not know what happened to them after that, but the only thing I want to tell them is, let's not meet. And P.S. I still meet the janitor when I go to the mall and he's a good friend and not a creep. My cousin and I don't get along though. When I was 17, I worked in a large mall at Vans. I had a lot of creepy older guys come in and flirt with me, but one guy took the cake. One day, I was working the usual busy as hell Saturday nights and there were 4 very tall men that asked for my help getting shoes. I worked at an outlet so the store was large with tall racks. The mall that I worked in was extremely popular amongst locals and tourists alike. The mall had some history with being a trafficking hotspot for context. So anyway, the men said that they were from Nigeria and they were all pretty chill at first until they began to flirt. One man kept saying that he had a son in Nigeria and asked if I wanted to wed him. I laughed because I thought he was joking, but suddenly he looked extremely offended. I was awkward and I began talking about the shoes, but the man interrupted me with saying how great his son was and that I would make a great wife. At that point, I grew uncomfortable because I didn't want to be rude, so I asked for a coworker to come over to take care of them while I went to the bathroom. Everything was normal for the remainder of my shift. I clocked out and I was waiting for my dad to come pick me up. I usually walked around the halls of the mall as I waited. The music was soothing and all was calm. I walked past a restroom hall and saw a figure standing in my peripheral. I glanced and saw it was the 4 men from earlier. I was in full-on panic mode at that point, but I played it off. I smiled at them softly and kept walking so they didn't think I was being rude. And sure enough, they began following me. I picked up my pace, hoping to find other people walking around, but there was no one. I was speed walking, but the guys were keeping pace with me. My thoughts were to just go to the bathroom so I could lose them, so I entered the next restroom hall. I walked slowly, thinking that I had lost them, but soon after I heard pounding footsteps in a hurry. I looked back and they were coming right for me. I didn't think the bathroom was an option anymore, and I started yelling for help. I ran straight for the employee corridors of the mall. Right when I got through the doors, a security guard met me on the other side. I bumped into him, and I never felt more relieved in my life. The men took off the other way, and the guard let me stay in his office until my dad came. Thank God for the guard. If he wasn't there, I probably wouldn't be writing this right now. I deliver pizza, and I've been having a really busy night. Non-stop back and forth, without any time to even pause and take a leak. It's been so busy that I wasn't really thinking about bathroom breaks. But we're also going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me. Like things went from 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so I could go and get this one over with quickly. Or so I thought. I pulled up to the house, and it was an area that I had delivered in before, so I could immediately see that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the streetlight closest to the door happened to be out of order, and on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and obviously there aren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just liked sitting in the dark, or they were out in the backyard, whatever. I just didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night. It was around 9:30 p.m. without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much. So I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah." I just tried to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." And the customer replied, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that point that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with the customer right out of the gate. "Well then, we're going to have to terminate the order, because I've arrived in the stated delivery window, and you were supposed to pay in cash though. I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me, as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very strong girl who couldn't have been older than 20 or 25. "My gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street so I could barely hear you," she cried. "I just switched you out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming. That's why I'm literally running home right now. Please don't leave. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay?" I know what it's like to be hungry and running late, and to have no car but not to live near any restaurants. Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this place a couple of times before, and she had always been perfectly nice. Now I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back, while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad. I'm letting the heat get to me and it's not your fault. No need to rush. See you when you get here." I hung up and, while surveilling the street, was starting to think I was really out of luck. All of the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out-of-the-way patches of land or anything. Of course, I just tossed my empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of an emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home. The streetlight was out, so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms. So if someone did spot me, they would have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals pee outside all the time. Humans are animals. This is fine. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't really have much of a yard, more just a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. The biggest cluster of bushes, the only one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her door. I looked both ways, unzipped, and I let it fly. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off. More like peeing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking that I had aimed wrong. But once I start, I can't stop midstream. So I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key rock or something that could just move over a few inches. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise. A deep voice exclaiming, "What the hell?" And before I could turn around, assuming that I had been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew by me, brushing my golden shower off of him as he did. He spit pretty emphatically on the ground, so I think I might have beamed him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but though his next part is kind of a blur, I do think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I had gotten some night vision by that point, so I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such shock that I didn't even put my dick away. I stood there trying to figure out what had happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it, and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area and just look like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an open window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, "Bruh, the man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation." But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in bushes at all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping by not coping. My fight-or-flight response totally failed me at that point, because my dumbass did the absolute last thing I should have done, and approached the bushes to try and validate this. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night. That theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone flashlight, and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip: as scary as things may look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of your flashlight can sometimes make it even worse. That's when I saw the bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting beyond the bushes, slightly splashed with pee. But I was in such a moronic daze from shock that I groped around for it, thinking, see, this is it. This will explain why he was back here. And it explained it alright. Once I maneuvered it over and pulled it open, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is, more laser-focused than I'd ever been in my life, with one singular goal: to get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car, and slammed the pedal to the floor before the door was even all the way closed. I went as far as I could as fast as I could until I hit a red signal, and then pulled off to the side and realized that I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition that I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm and coherent enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first? The police or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have been more than 10 seconds, but felt like an hour, and decided, okay, I'm in a locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up, and she might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I thought I remembered delivering to that house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me, or worse? Every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now, so I thought. She called me all out of breath. She wasn't home. The whole thing was off and I can't risk it. I'll start with the cops. I called 911. The operator was very helpful in keeping me calm, because I was complete wreck by this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon. He kept telling me that they had to get there before the girl did, but I was trying to express 3 thoughts at once, and really damaging my own credibility. It came out more as, you've got to save this girl because he wasn't after me, I was just delivering the pizza. Unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl, but I talked to one on the phone, so then you should find that girl because they used her to lure me there. But if she's real, she doesn't know about the guy who was also real, and there could be more guys if there's actually a girl. And you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might actually be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't actually know. But we'll know which guy is the one I saw because I pissed all over him. You know. I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real but not home. But she might be real, so you really need to find her if she is because the guy was real. Finally, they basically just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line. But that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But then she sent me a text like, "Hey, I'm here. I don't see you." I told 911 that she was there, and they said officers were only minutes away. But who knows how long that meant, especially after I had given such a scattered account of the events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt, because my irrational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put my 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back, heart absolutely pounding out of my chest, compulsively muttering, "Shit, shit, shit," the entire way. Then I took 911 off mute and told them that I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars on the street, looking to see if one was mine, and I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced on over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky. I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was. But I was just so scared to be back in the general area and to not know what had just happened or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, "Get in, get in." And she was like, "Get it, huh? Oh, you want me to get the pizza from the back?" I didn't want to make the same mistake with her that I had made with 911. So instead of trying to tell her the whole story, I stuck to the bare, basic facts. "There is a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors." I was barely able to even get those sentences out, and I was shaking like I had just had 10 cups of black coffee. I held out my phone with 911 on the call screen to verify it for her. I thought this was why she got in the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. "Are you still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Is anyone else there?" 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them and we drove, more cautiously this time, to a location 911 instructed us to wait as to speak with police after they cleared the area. I didn't actually have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after. A police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I had observed, and she went to go speak to more officers in more detail than they needed me for. It turns out the reason she got right into the strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing, "There's a guy in your bushes." She later called us to thank me and insisted on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, so the kid who answered didn't know to refuse to accept the money. But the manager already promised the next time we see her, we can load her up with enough 1 free pie cards to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could possibly know the girl or know of the event. But I'm still not the same sense. Even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly, this truly shook me to my core.